Hi there, I'm Luke. Welcome back to PhotoBite, and today we've got something a little different from DJI. We have the Osmo Action. Let's get into it. So the DJI Osmo Action is the first generation product from DJI, showing off their new action camera. Now this comes as a bit of a shock and a bit of a surprise, but one that we'll take happily, because the great thing about this coming out is it actually gives GoPro a run for its money. Now, starting off with the price, you're looking at £400 for the GoPro Hero 7 Black and £329 for the DJI Osmo. So what actually makes the two of them so different? Not much really separates the two. You see, it's an action camera, and like GoPro, they kind of resemble the same shape. In fact, you would almost mistakenly assume that DJI actually took the design from GoPro. But the difference with this is that there's a screen on the front, which means that when you're showing it and pointing it to yourself, you've actually got a selfie camera. So taking from the screen, one of the conveniences is the fact that you can actually frame up a lot better when you're pointing the camera at yourself. You're not guessing. Yes, we do know the angle is very wide, so it is very easy to see, but it just allows you to know that you're not getting your top part of your head or your whole body and none of the background. So it does work in that convenience. However, it is a square image, so do bear that in mind, as it means that you won't be able to know if your friends are fully in the shot or if they're only half in the shot. So do bear that in mind. Now, going over to video, we have to say that we are quite impressed with what the DJI can do. You can get up to 4K at 60 frames a second, and it'll record at 100 megabytes a second, so very impressive on that end. You've also got 2.7K up to 60 frames a second as well, and then you can do 1080p all the way up to 240 frames a second, and there's plenty of frame rates to choose within that as well, so you won't be at a loss to say, oh, it doesn't have 48 frames a second, of which weirdly this does, and there aren't many cameras out there that offer that sort of frame rate. So to have it in a DJI Osmo really shows that they've thought about the video aspect and they've given users plenty of options. Now, one of the nice things as well that DJI have added in is the D-Cine-like. So if you're a filmmaker out there and you want to be able to edit and grade your photos, you can do this with the DJI Osmo. You haven't got to wait for a software piece to come out, or a software update, shall we say, to come out for you to be able to do that. It's already in the camera and it's good to go. Now, in terms of actual function, it's a very simple, very easy camera to use. When we actually open it up, there is actually the battery, which is part of the body. So when you go to put it in, it actually completes the body, which is very nice. Just make sure that you do have both switches locked out. Otherwise, it will mean that you're letting water in there. So you take it down, you're gonna put water in it and break it. So do bear that in mind. So do push down firmly. And when let's turn that recording off because it was recording for some reason. And when it actually comes to general use, when you swipe left, you've got your playback. You swipe down, you've then got settings. You swipe right, you've got your exposure options, and you swipe up, and then you have your video settings. Now, it's a very easy piece of kit to use once you get your head around it, but it didn't take too long for us to get used to it, and it was pretty natural in how we were using it. Only thing we did find that was a tad annoying was the double tap, and that's what changes it to the front, which means you've got to kind of use both your hands to do it. So if you're riding a bike or you've got one hand occupied, you're not going to be able to just tap it and control it. So you're going to have to hold it funny, and it means you're not, really squeezing it. You've got to use your weaker fingers and tap it, and sometimes you might not actually tap it, and it might. Let's just say there's a few software issues that need to be worked on, including, hey Osmo, start recording. Hey Osmo, start recording. Osmo, start recording. So yeah, they got to get that one figured out. Now, when it comes to competing against GoPro's Hypersmooth, what DJI have come up with is Rocksteady, and that will use a gyroscope inside and computer software and will counteract any movement that you are making. That gives you smoother video. Now, in testing, we're going to leave that over to Mike, who we're going to hand over to now, and he's going to put the DJI Osmo Action through its paces. So without further ado, we'd like to introduce to you Mike.
This is the Osmo Action. The internet is calling it a potential GoPro killer, but is that true? We're going to have a look and see what we can find out. what about stabilisation? Photobike decided the best way to test this is to strap it to one of us, send us down a 400-foot near vertical cycle path and see how it performs. So Luke, me, let's get into this. Thoughts on the stabilisation? It's great. It's Rocksteady by name, Rocksteady by nature. You'll see from some of this footage though, when I hit a larger bump, it has trouble accommodating for the larger bump. On the smaller ones, on the smaller shudders, as you go over sort of gravel or wooden planks, it's brilliant at making up for that. I find that's kind of the opposite to the way the GoPro software works, but them taking difficult footage and doing a really good job with the software and making them flow almost like a gimbal. It's not up to gimbal footage style, and it's never going to replicate a gimbal or a drone, but at the same time it's getting there. It's getting very close, and it's making previously unusable footage very usable. Now, I did find that when you turn on Rocksteady, you're losing about a 10% border around the footage, of which the software is using to allow wiggle room for the stabilization. So it's just something to be aware of. If you compose the shot, hit Rocksteady, hit record, shoot off, be aware that you're probably going to lose 10% around the footage itself for stabilization. It's not an issue. As long as you know it and you can accommodate for it, it's not really an issue. So now the next day, from the very beginning, we decided we're going to shoot the Osmo footage as close to how it comes out of the box as possible, because people watch this, they want to get an idea of how the camera works and what the footage looks like as it comes out of the camera. So there's no point me shooting in neutral, color grading the whole footage and then saying this is what the Osmo footage looks like, because it's not fair. But what we did discover yesterday when filming the downhill section in the forest is that with the color profile that comes with the camera, the lot of the bright bits, and it was sunny in Scotland yesterday, so to be fair, we're not used to that. The lot of the bright bits were far too blown out, and a lot of the dark bits were far too dark. Now, I mean, it's going to happen. These have very small sensors. They're not there to take the best meteors footage. They're there to take footage in the most varied of situations, underwater for example. But it did mean that I'm forced to come out again today, film more on a far grayer day, which will hopefully not blow the camera out as much, and get some footage that were usable. I'm going to go and mess about on a waterfall now, so I shall see you there. And here we are. Now, I'm going to say that this footage is going to have the same issue as yesterday's footage. The woods are very dark, whereas the outside is very bright. I'm not going to fall over. Right. The outside is very bright. If you're seeing this footage, we had the same issue. So what can you do about this? Well, shoot in cine flat. We're shooting in the standard out-of-the-box colour palette that comes with a DJI. That's because we want to show you the true representation of what the camera does. However, if you shoot in cine flat, you can put this footage into Premiere Pro, Final Cut, and you can tweak the brights and the darks to within an inch of their life. Tweak them as much as you need to. You'll be able to save a lot more footage. If you're not comfortable colour grading, I'll put a couple of links in the description. Check them out. It will make a world of difference to your footage. But for now, we're just going to carry on with the standard palette, and let's get down to this waterfall.
I've really enjoyed my short time with the Osmo Action Pro. It's a great camera. It's compact, it's light, stabilization is really good. the standard color palette is action cam color palette. It's always going to be very saturated and very contrasty, but again, as we stated, if you film in a neutral color palette, then you've got control over it anyway. But apart from that, there's no real huge niggles to this camera. There's tiny little things you can pick at, which is a good sign, because it means they've put a lot of work into it. Now, this is DJI's first generation action camera, but this is by no means a first gen camera. This is a camera built on the back of 7 generations of GoPros, and it shows. But this is a good thing, and competition in the action camera market, which has sorely been lacking so far, is going to benefit us in the long run. I'm looking forward to what comes afterwards. I'm assuming stabilization, front facing screens are going to become a standard across action cameras, because it just makes it so much easier to use.
Thank you, Mike, for that. It's good to hear your side and your opinion on the DJI Osmo Action. And to round up, we have to say that the DJI Osmo is a very good starting point for DJI. It is a first generation product on their side, so there's plenty of places for them to improve in software. One of the places we also like to see them is improve on lens angles, because you only get one in these, which means if you want to get close, you've got to do that, and you've got to get further, you've got to do that. So it's a bit like a prime lens. Yes, it is wide, but some users may want it wider. Some users may not so wide, so they can get a more wide but not warped image. So do bear that in mind if you're looking at the DJI Osmo. But again, as I said, it's just software. That's what they need to improve, and that's going to take them the next step further. And in terms of price against the GoPro Hero 7 Black, you do save some money, but you also do lose a few benefits. Now, that is mainly coming down to the wide angle. Battery wise, you're looking at about an hour and a half to charge this tiny thing up. I mean, for an hour and a half to charge this up, really? An hour and a half for this? I don't know. I mean, maybe we're being too harsh, or maybe they really need to update their battery compatibility. I mean, their drone batteries are bigger and probably charge almost the same time as that, and you're getting it in a small one. But anyway, alas from that, when it comes to video as well, when you're shooting 4K, you get roughly an hour. If you're shooting 1080p with Rocksteady, you're probably getting about an hour and a half, give or take, but that does depending what settings you're in. You've got Rocksteady on, Rocksteady off, resolution, frame rate, that does come into it, and weirdly enough, temperature as well. So if you're in a cold climate, it will bring that runtime down, so just bear that in mind. But overall, very impressed. We're glad to see DJI stepping into the action market, and we're keen to see where this goes, and we're keen to see if there's going to be an Osmo Action Pro, or if that's ever going to exist, but they're just going to update this. So that is our review on the DJI Osmo Action. If you guys have any questions whatsoever, let us know down in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe, and as always, my name's Luke, this is PhotoBite, and we'll see you next time.